According to the White House, Dan, according to the White House went to the Free Press yesterday. You should check your facts before you come on and defend the White House. The White House went to the Free Press and said, we're not accusing him of breaking any laws. So Congressman Dan Crenshaw is coming on TV making wild accusations of law breaking based on a quote that's not from Mahmoud Khalil.
Well, they're not wild accusations. It's just referencing the law.
They are. Well, hold on. You're wrong, Dan.
NATO, Trump, and European allies. Let's start with the so-called debate over America, losing, allies. Piers Morgan and Dan Crenshaw are desperately trying to sell the idea that Europe's somehow weak without U.S. intervention, but the reality is far messier. Mehdi Hasan points out something crucial. Europe has finally started taking responsibility for its own defense. Trump, despite all his flaws, wasn't entirely wrong about NATO underfunding. European countries were skating by while expecting the U.S. to bankroll their military security. Hasan's point is sharp. America's role shouldn't be a free pass for Europe to slack off. And yet on Morgan's show, every time Hasan tries to make this argument, he gets shouted down. It's a classic case of media, theatrics pretending to be neutral while subtly giving Trump and Crenshaw the upper hand. The takeaway? Facts matter, but debate theater often drowns them out. Before we dive into the full story, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, all that in mind, let's walk through the clips to the show, and along the way I will break down not just what was said, but what was really going on in the next studio. Now let's get into it.
According to the White House, Dan, according to the White House went to the Free Press yesterday. You should check your facts before you come on and defend the White House. The White House went to the Free Press and said, we're not accusing him of breaking any laws. So Congressman Dan Crenshaw is coming on TV making wild accusations of law breaking based on a quote that's not from Mahmoud Khalil.
Well, they're not wild accusations. It's just referencing the law.
They are. Well, hold on. You're wrong, Dan.
Not losing allies. America's not losing any allies.
We're not losing any allies. We're
You're in
making
denial,
them stronger.
Piers. You're in denial.
Well, the British Prime Minister has made it clear in the last few days that the US relationship has never been
met with senior
stronger.
advisors.
And by the way,
all that's happening, all that's happening is that European countries
two of you just
are
shouting
finally.
at me. All right.
It was my show. European.
I think every viewer can see the two of you.
Mehdi, sometimes you forget you're on my show when you do this. If I'm on yours, you can dictate it any way you like.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, when you're on mine, Piers, I don't do two against one. I do on my own.
Well,
I interview on my own.
No, you do. All that's happened in the last week or so is that Europe has finally stepped up and accepted more responsibility for defending itself properly and less reliance on America to constantly bail us out.
Can I speak at
As a European, I am completely in favour of that, and that's almost entirely down to Donald Trump, who was right onto the NATO scam in his first term, where European countries were not paying even their basic dues into NATO. Why should America step up as everyone's policeman, backing them with money, with military and everything else, if the Europeans won't even pay their basic membership fees? He was right then, and he's right now about Europe stepping up. Mehdi.
I'm allowed to speak yet?
You may speak.
Can I respond? Thank you very much. It's funny because I said to your producer before, Piers going to be neutral. He said, yes, very neutral.
I am neutral.
Two people shouting at me every time I speak.
I am neutral.
Yeah, okay, if you say so. I think the viewers can see that two people are shouting at me every time I speak. So, yeah, I think it's clear that two people are shouting at me every time I try and speak.
You made a big statement about interrupting, so we're just calling you out when you interrupt everybody. Mehdi,
let me know when I can speak, boys. I'll try. Let's see.
You're being a baby. You're being a baby.
On the front, there you go. There you go. There's another interruption. Another interruption from Dan. Hey, Dan, I'm not a baby. I'm happy to be here on my own. You need to be handheld by Piers. That's fine. Look, my point here about Russia is very simple.
Handhold Dan Crenshaw.
My point about Russia.
Are you even aware of his military career?
So far, three interruptions. Let's keep going.
Then we move into the Ukraine discussion, and this is where Hasan absolutely demolishes the simplistic talking points. Crenshaw claims the U.S. is losing influence, but Hasan dismantles that with real context. European nations have already spent hundreds of billions supporting Ukraine militarily and humanitarian-wise. Meanwhile, Trump's relationship with Putin is exposed for what it is: admiration for a dictator, not genuine strategic policy. Hasan underscores Biden's role. Yes, the invasion happened on his watch, but without U.S. support, Ukraine could have fallen much faster. The nuance is critical. Yet Piers Morgan's production style keeps cutting him off. It's not just about Trump versus Biden. It's about understanding how foreign policy, alliances, and real-world consequences interact. Hasan frames it like a lesson in how political theater and media Bias distort public perception.
Let's try and grow up. Let's move on to the final topic, which is Mahmoud Halil, who's this prominent figure in Columbia University's pro-Palestinian student protest movement, been arrested and detained on Saturday after an executive order by President Trump ordered that terrorist sympathizers should be deported. Now, Halil is married to an American, but is in the US on a green card, and there is actual legal activity still ongoing, so we'll have to see how that all plays out. Trump wrote on Truth Social, "We know there are more students at Columbia and other universities across the country who've engaged in pro-terrorist, anti-Semitic, anti-American activity, and the Trump administration will not tolerate it." Mehdi, your response?
Yeah, so to go back to the start of the show, and Dan talked about Trump derangement syndrome. Many people have accused me of Trump derangement syndrome because I've been warning about, as you know, on this show with you, Piers, you and I have argued about Trump fascism, Trump autocracy, authoritarianism, racism. I've been super worried about what Donald Trump might be. But even I was shocked by this. I thought they would go after student visas, students, the low-hanging fruit. I would have objected to that, but there would have been at least some argument there. To go after a lawful permanent resident in this way, no accusation of a crime, no charge of a crime, the way they did it was horrific. Then Trump comes out with weaponizing Judaism in a Hebrew with Shalom Mahmoud, again accusing him of no crime, saying he's anti-Semitic and anti-American, very McCarthyite phrase. What does anti-American mean? Donald Trump, many would argue, is very anti-American. So it's a very, very scary moment we're in. Those of us who believe in the rule of law, who support immigrant rights. There are more green card holders in the US than undocumented immigrants, 14 million, who are now, I know many of them who are living in fear now about what they, what's going to happen to them. Did they say something or do something that Trump doesn't like? I do find it ironic that the Republican Party, which obsessed for years over threats to free speech, over social media censorship, over COVID lockdowns, over the government coming for your guns, black helicopters in the skies, now seem to be totally fine with armed federal agents from the United States government turning up unannounced at the home of a US citizen who is 8 months pregnant to detain without charge her lawful permanent resident husband and then disappear him simply because the President of the United States doesn't agree with his political views or the content of his speech. If that is not fascism, I don't know what is.
Okay, Dan, your response.
I'll help you out. So let's read what Khalil's statements actually were. Quote, "We are Westerners fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization. Our intifada is an internationalist one. We are fighting for nothing less than the liberation of all people." So this is an incitement to violence, very clearly so. If you're looking,
that's a statement from a group he was part of.
Yeah. So okay. So here's the law. You're right. Sorry. That is correct. Now here's the law that we're referencing. You said he broke no laws, but it's Section 8 U.S. Code 1227. Being a representative of a political or social group that endorses or espouses terrorist activity is against the law and a violation of the social contract of having that visa. That's the argument. There isn't some. This isn't some McCarthyism. This isn't some vague issue. How is it false? I just read to you the actual U.S. code.
Not true. I'll tell you.
Not true according to who?
I can tell you how it's false. Because according to the White House, Dan, according to the White House went to the Free Press yesterday. You should check your facts before you come on and defend the White House. The White House went to the Free Press and said, we're not accusing him of breaking any laws. So Congressman Dan Crenshaw is coming on TV making wild accusations of law breaking based on a quote that's not from Mahmoud Khalil.
Well, they're not wild accusations. It's just referencing the law.
They are. Well, hold on. Hold on, you're wrong, Dan. First, accept that you're wrong. The White House said to the Free Press, Barry Weiss's right-wing Free Press, this week, we are not accusing him of breaking any laws. In fact, if you want to understand the laws, you need to look at the Immigration National Act of 1952. They're actually taking him into deportation proceedings under Section 237A4CI, which allows Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, to personally deport a migrant because he believes that migrant's presence has serious potential adverse consequences for U.S. foreign policy. That is the obscure act, which, by the way, was designed for Eastern European Jews to get rid of them because they were deemed to be communists in the 1950s. That is what Rubio is using to get rid of a lawful permanent resident. Now, whether that's legal or not, Trump's late sister, Judge Marion Trump Barry, said it was a violation of the First Amendment. We'll see if the Supreme Court gets involved. But the idea that we should live in a country where Marco Rubio or Antony Blinken can remove a green card holder because he doesn't like his views and they're against U.S. foreign policy, some nebulous aim, that's outrageous. And there was a time when the Republican Party would have been against that.
Thank you for making the argument
today,
stronger. You've added to my argument, and I appreciate that. So perhaps you should be defending the Trump administration instead of me.
I'm pointing out to you that he hasn't broken any laws.
He hasn't
committed any criminal violence. He hasn't broken any laws.
You added.
No, he hasn't broken any laws. That law,
which Rubio was
no,
saying.
Dan, let me explain it to you again. That law gives Rubio the power to do it. That doesn't mean Mahmoud Khalil has broken any laws.
And I gave you
Maybe
another
don't understand
law,
the distinction.
and I referenced another law.
And you're wrong. And you're wrong. The White House disowned you, Dan. And the White House disowned you. The White House said we're not accusing him of law breaking. Your White House, Dan. It's embarrassing for you because the White House disowned you, and you don't know that.
Finally, Hasan takes on what might be the most alarming part: the weaponization of immigration law. When a lawful permanent resident is detained for political beliefs, with no crime committed, it's not hyperbole to call it chilling. Hasan lays out the legal framework and exposes the hypocrisy. Republicans love to preach free speech when it suits them, but have no problem using armed federal agents to target dissenters. Trump's administration turns green card holders into bargaining chips for foreign policy, and the media lets right-wing guests reframe it as lawful enforcement. Hasan calls it what it is: an authoritarian move disguised as patriotism. For anyone who still believes the U.S. protects free expression equally, this should be a wake-up call. The point is sharp: freedom isn't selective, and neither should accountability be.